Hamas boss has been assassinated. Why did Israel choose the new Iranian president's inauguration?
In Iran, it's easier not to see that as an attack on Iran, but rather as an attack on Hamas or an attack on the Iranian axis.
Is Netanyahu going to use this assassination?
In principle, it is. It goes back to Netanyahu's political calculations. Until now, Netanyahu did not move towards a deal. He has far-right coalition partners. For many Israelis, that's the big question for the Israeli public.
You're watching the Times of India. I'm Aditi Prasad and I'm joined by Nimrod Goren. He's a senior fellow of Israeli affairs at the Mitvim Institute and he's speaking to us from Jerusalem. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Goren. Mr. Goren, the Hamas boss has been assassinated in Iran in an overnight strike, allegedly an Israeli airstrike, although Israel is yet to confirm. But all over it's believed that Israel is the one that has launched this airstrike. And what, according to you, are the implications of this on the ongoing Gaza war, on the truce talks, on hostage negotiations? What next?
It's a major event because Ismail Haniyeh was a leading figure in the Hamas political wing, one who was responsible for years and decades for attacks and actions against Israel. Israel has vouched to go after all those from Hamas involved in the October 7 events, and it's doing so. The fact that it happens on Iran adds another layer to that because we already saw all these tensions between Israel, Iran, and the Iranian proxies in the region. Just last night, the military leader of Hezbollah was targeted by the Israeli army. So the context is one of going towards escalation, putting additional hurdles on the way for a ceasefire, hostage deal between Israel and Hamas, which, by the way, was already quite stuck before this attack. It's not as if yesterday things were so moving forward towards closure of a deal.
Right. Israel, of course, as I said, has not confirmed that it is the one which has done this airstrike. My question to you is why did Israel choose Pezeshkian's, the new Iranian president's inauguration, to do this hit? What is the message that Israel is trying to send out here?
It is a strategic decision because, as you mentioned, Ismail Haniyeh was a visible political actor. He's been traveling to different capitals, so it's not as if he's in hiding like, let's say, Hassan Nasrallah or Yahya Sinwar. It is difficult to pin down. I think the location was an issue, partly because the countries in which Israel doesn't want to act. So when he's in Qatar, when he's in Turkey, those are countries that Israel does not want to take operation like that onwards. In Iran, it's easier, paradoxically speaking, because it increases the tension with Iran, but it's a space in which is already part of the warfare between Israel and the Iranian military and proxies. So it's seen as more legitimate. Israel has more capabilities, perhaps, to operate there. So it's an operational opportunity, plus a message that those that Israel is going after are not immune, whether they are in Beirut or in Tehran. The big strategic question is what does Israel do with this military achievement? What does it leverage it to more escalation or to advancement of a deal that will tone down the war in Gaza?
Interesting that you say that because one of the questions that come to top of mind is Netanyahu going to use this assassination because it falls in line with his announcement that the war will only end with the end of Hamas. Is Netanyahu or can Netanyahu leverage this killing maybe to sort of move towards peace, end the stalemate on the negotiations? Do you think that's a possibility?
In principle, it is, because if you would say that Netanyahu's political goal is to reach the ceasefire deal with Hamas, then now Netanyahu has two very strong military achievements in his pocket, one vis-a-vis Hezbollah, the other vis-a-vis Hamas. He could take that, market it to the Israeli public as a big win, and then go ahead and reach a deal that the majority of Israelis already support. So there is no need to convince Israelis that a deal is necessary. The security establishment and the political establishment, the Israeli public people wanted. Netanyahu was in Washington last week. The Americans are pushing for that. But then it goes back to Netanyahu's political calculations. Until now, Netanyahu did not move towards a deal. He has far-right coalition partners that are threatening to topple his government. So it basically goes to a political decision by the Israeli prime minister, whether he wants it or not. Until now, he didn't want it. Whether that changes now, we'll see. There are doubts about it in Israel.
Right, but even if he does go for it, even he does no move forward in negotiations with this achievement, what happens to the hostages?
The hostages' fate is difficult with or without the attack on Ania, because as we already know, there are currently 115 people still held by Hamas, dead and alive. Over the last months, we saw a growing number of them that were pronounced dead, unfortunately. So the situation is not easy. We know the difficult conditions they are being held in. Some came back, told horrible stories about what happened to them. So the hostages is a very big issue of urgency for many Israelis. That's the big question for the Israeli public, whether the government could bring back the hostages. And as time goes by, it's becoming more difficult, and we have less living hostages, unfortunately, to bring home. So the urgency is big. That should be a top priority for the prime minister to do whatever he can to take this responsibility and seal that deal.
At a time when the situation with Hezbollah on the northern front for Israel is escalating, at a time when, simultaneously when the Gaza war is happening, the issues with Lebanon are escalating. There could be, there are talks about a full-fledged war. Do you think this kill hit on Hania in Iran is a message to Iran also to rein back Hezbollah, to rein in its proxy?
It is a message to Iran. Of course, that's not the primary issue or goal, because the goal was to go after the Hamas leadership. But we saw what happened between Israel and Iran in the last few months. And we remember April, the direct strike, the first time that Iran directly struck Israel. So the two countries are trying to redefine the rules of engagement. The Iran attack against Israel in April was because some Iranian officials were hit by an Israeli strike in Syria. Now the equation is different. We're talking about the Palestinian Hamas leader that was killed. Will that justify a direct hit by Iran against Israel? Seemingly, I think Iran will not go for that, but will try to go through its proxies, whether the Houthis in Yemen, the militias in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, rather than proactively taking a role upon itself when it needs to defend someone else. So I think that game of defining the rules of engagement with Israel and Iran is still in play. The goal, I think, both for Israel and Hezbollah is to not let things get out of control towards a full-fledged war. And that's where the international diplomacy also has a role, how to contain this very difficult situation that is likely to deteriorate even further in the coming days.
This time, Israel has done a direct hit inside Iran, in the capital Tehran, and on a state guest house, on a state guest, who had come to attend the inauguration of the new president. Uh, what reaction are you expecting from Iran? And I'm asking you, what does the Israeli establishment expect Iran to do? Not get into a direct hit back? Are they? You saying that they're still going to be using their proxies?
Yeah, I think the expectation is for Iran not to see that as an attack on Iran, but rather as an attack on Hamas or an attack on the Iranian axis in the region. If it's not a direct attack on Iran, then Iran should not take an action that will dramatically escalate things. We saw in April how it was not only Israel defending itself against Iran, it was also the Americans, and we saw involvement of the Jordanians, the Saudis, the Emiratis. So it became a regional issue which everybody tried to avoid, I think also the Iranians themselves. So I would expect Iran to wish to retaliate. After all, it's something that Israel did on its territory while it was hosting a guest, but it has so much options to do that that are not direct by itself. And therefore, if it combines with what happened in Lebanon last night, that in any case will necessitate probably a response by Hezbollah, then those things could be somehow combined. And I think that will be more easy for the different parties to contain than opening another channel of escalation directly between Israel and Iran, which is not something that not the countries in the region, not the international community wants to see happening.
What do you see playing out in the coming few days as far as Hezbollah is concerned? Because that the northern border is already on the brink.
Yeah, the northern border is on the brink for the past 9 months plus. the northern border, the northern part of Israel has been attacked on a regular basis by Hezbollah. It's been evacuated by tens of thousands of people who live there and are now displaced within Israel and are not sure where they could come back home. So the problem is already there. Until now, it was somehow contained, although not definitely not a good situation for Israel to be at. The fear now that Hezbollah will fire missiles in a longer range than it did until now. So there is preparation in Israel to absorb any attack that will come southern than what was fired until now. And the concern is whether Hezbollah will keep on mostly looking at military targets or will also target civilian places, whether it's the big cities like Haifa or others. So that's kind of the place where Israel is at. It took a step back. It is waiting to see what will be the response. It is preparing its defense capabilities to block whatever Iran or its proxies try to do. And then we'll take it from there and decide what the next steps according to what and how Hezbollah responds and what are the losses, if at all, that will be caused by that.
So tough days ahead. Things are going to boil over. You're saying in the next few days, and negotiations, truce, perhaps goes on the back burner at least for the time being.
Yes, but truce unofficially, at least between Israel and Hezbollah, to tone down what will happen over the next few days will be a goal for those engaging in mediation. We know the Americans, the French, some other countries have been dealing with that. That will be vital because if things get out of control between Israel and Hezbollah, that will become a regional problem, and that could be something that is much more dangerous than what's happening now in Gaza for both countries and the region. I think that's the top priority now to avoid a full-fledged Israel-Hezbollah war. And then when things are contained, go back to the ceasefire talks in Gaza, put the necessary pressure on the side to make the deal happen. And once the deal is happening, then the way to contain the tensions along the Israel-Lebanese border is much easier because Hezbollah already announced that once there is a ceasefire in Gaza, it will stop its attacks on Israel from the soil of Lebanon. So I think that's what should be prioritized, but only after these next few days are over and things have hopefully been contained.
Thank you, Mr. Nimrod Goren, for those insights and those views all the way from Jerusalem. And thank you, viewers, for watching this broadcast. Hope it has added to your insight about what this latest flare up in the event of Hamas forces assassination on Iranian soil and what the near term and long term implications are likely to be. Thank you so much, Mr. Goren, for joining us. Thank you,
Thank you.
viewers, for
Thank you very
watching this
much.
broadcast.